Hello and a hearty welcome to Star Television with news around Africa and the world.
Hello there and a hearty welcome. Thanks for joining us. You are on Star Television, Channel 21. This is news around Africa and the world with me, Janet Mubezaiza. Starting today's edition is in Kenya with a report that says packed up in the Kasarani district of Kenyan capital Nairobi is a group of health workers who are on a mission to derive the COVID-19 vaccinations. According to the World Health Organization, this overall trend of virus on the African continent is down, but it is still not completely contained. WHO figures report that as of the 6th of April 2022, there were 11.5 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and more than 252,000 deaths reported on the continent. Here is more of the story.
A new solar-powered mobile health unit is helping deliver COVID-19 vaccines to smaller towns and villages in Kenya. Getting vaccines to remote parts of the country at the correct temperatures is just one of the challenges faced by the Kenya vaccination program.
This particular unit has utilized the innovations. It can be able to go deeper into the communities where access is a problem. So not only in Nairobi, even in other counties where we have issues for access. And also because it utilizes solar to maintain the cold chain, then it is an efficient way of ensuring that we have effective vaccines.
Now, health workers are reporting a boost in vaccine uptake as they take the vaccine directly to people who cannot travel long distances to a hospital. I am very happy because as a business lady, I never have enough time. I have been hearing that people are getting vaccinated in hospitals that are far away from where I am. I used to wonder what I'm going to do about the hospital, but now that they have come near me to where I work, I have decided to take this step.
Another step.
The mobile clinic is able to reach densely populated areas as well as more rural population while maintaining the need for cold storage of vaccines like AstraZeneca and Moderna. This is the first COVID-19 mobile clinic in Kenya, but there are plans to introduce 10 more which will serve several different counties.
And now to Mozambique, a report says inside the Huleni dump, at least 500 people scavenge through garbage every day to survive. And as preparations are underway to close the space where 16 people were buried in 2018, fear hangs over the heads of those who depend on garbage to earn a living. This report tells us more.
Inside the Hulene dump on the outskirts of the Mozambican capital, Maputo, at least 500 people scavenge through garbage every day to survive as preparations get underway to close the space where 16 people were buried in 2018. Fear now hangs over the heads of those who depend on garbage to live, as what should be a reason for natural joy, the end of an open-air dump, is currently generating anguish. That could be chaos. It could increase the level of prostitution because we have a lot of ladies here and a lot of young women. We also have a lot of young people. They could have access to free courses. It could be carpentry, metalworking or mechanics. And at the end they could give material. The dump would close and we would be in peace. Most of the collectors who scavenge the 25 hectares of the largest garbage dump in Mozambique are women who live on the poverty line from different provinces. hanging from the back of a garbage truck or dodging the front shovel of a backhoe. In this job, whoever gets there first succeeds. People don't work because they like it. They work because of poverty, to catch something. They pick up things to eat, to wear, objects. There are businessmen who buy those products and give them money. A total of 16 people living in the surrounding area lost their lives early morning of February 19, 2018, when rain caused a portion of the dump to collapse on the slum with a height of a 3-story building. The tragedy would lead to the current plan to close the dump, which has been postponed before.
A report says an explosion in Togo has killed 7 people, the military said on Sunday, without giving further details about the blast. The explosion happened in Ton Prefecture near the border with Burkina Faso, where a Sahel jihadist insurgency is threatening to spill over into coastal West African nations. Togo last month declared a state of emergency in its northern prefectures over the threat of Islamist militant attack from north of its borders. This report tells us more.
An explosion in northern Togo has killed 7 people, the military confirmed on Sunday without giving further details about the blast. The explosion happened in Tone Prefecture near the border with Burkina Faso, where a Sahel jihadist insurgency is threatening to spill over into coastal West African nations. Togo last month declared a state of emergency in its northern prefectures over the threat of Islamist militant attacks from north of its borders. Togo's army said in a statement the explosion on Saturday in Magba village in Tone killed 7 and wounded 2 more. It did not give more details and did not describe it as an attack. 8 Togolese soldiers were also killed in May in an attack in northern Togo near the border with Burkina Faso. Togo's troops are deployed in the north of the country to try and contain a jihadist threat, pushing south from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, where militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State groups frequently operate.
You're still watching News Around Africa and the World here on Star Television, Channel 21. Continue watching and we'll be right back with more stories just after the break. This is News Around Africa and the World.
Hello and hearty welcome to Star Television with news around Africa and the world.
Welcome back if you're just joining us. This is News Around Africa and the World here on Star Television, Channel 21. A report says religious ceremony during the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha involved the sacrifice of an animal. But that is something most Afghans cannot afford this year. Western sanctions on the Taliban government have devastated the economy. This report tells us more.
This is Afghanistan's first Eid al-Adha under the Taliban in more than 20 years. It also comes at a time of international sanctions and a struggling economy. With millions of Afghans out of work or being paid a fraction of what they once were, many are cutting back on their holiday expenses. Muhammad Nabi, a dried fruit seller in Kabul's largest open-air market, says with the local currency losing its value, prices have gone up. So people are buying fewer items. He says dried fruit sellers have lost 60 to 70% of their business this year.
People are poor nowadays. We don't have enough sales this year. Pistachios alone went from 600 Afghanis to more than 1,000 a kilo.
It's not just snacks though. Families are also opting out of buying new clothes for the holiday. Waidullah Bawad, a tailor in the Korte Parwan neighborhood, says his orders have decreased 50% this year.
We have only these 2 celebrations, the 2 Eids. Traditionally, whatever people have, they will spend on these 2 Eids. But this year, a lot of people are struggling.
Some are even cutting back on the most important part of this Eid, purchasing animals for the ritual sacrifice. Imal Popal still has a job in a ministry, but he says his pay has been cut by more than 80%. He has managed to buy a cow and a sheep for his family, but he knows many more will not be able to do the same this year.
Eid al-Adha is made special by the sacrifice, so many people won't have a proper sense of celebrating Eid.
Popal says this year, more than ever, it's important to keep the poor in mind.
This market is the centerpiece of the Eid al-Adha celebration, but what we've seen this year is that people can't afford to buy the animals that they used to, and the shepherds have also had to cut their prices to meet reduced demand. So again, what it's showing is that the sanctions, the aid cutbacks, and the devaluation of the Afghani has affected every aspect of life in Afghanistan, right down to the Eid celebration. Ali Latifi, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
A report says thousands of people have marched to respond rallying against the proposed compromise with Bulgaria that will allow North Macedonia to become European Union membership talks. This report tells us more.
Enough is enough. That's the message from these protesters on the streets for a seventh day now. They're unhappy with some of the conditions in a proposal offered by French President Emmanuel Macron for their country to begin its long-awaited membership talks with the European Union.
I'm here to say no to that, like all other people here, because enough is enough. We don't want somebody to destroy our history, our future, because we are Macedonians.
Political tensions have been on the rise with violent nightly protests against the proposal. It would require North Macedonia to change its constitution to recognize a Bulgarian minority, protect minority rights, and banish hate speech, demands made by Bulgaria. Political leaders of North Macedonia say the proposal is a reasonable compromise, accepting it neither as a historic triumph nor failure. But North Macedonians don't agree.
There's no way to stop our government because they are too corrupted. There is no democracy in Macedonia.
North Macedonia has been a candidate for EU membership for 17 years. The country received the green light to begin negotiations in 2020, but no date has yet been set. It hoped a 2017 agreement with Greece, which ended a decades-long name dispute, would open the door for membership talks with the EU. But Bulgaria stepped in, using its veto powers as an EU member state to block its neighbor from joining. Both nations have been locked in a bitter dispute about history and identity for decades.
With centuries we have been Macedonians, but now our government decided that we have started to be Macedonians since 1945. And what about our grandfathers and great-grandfathers and all of the people who gives them lives for this country, for this identity?
Bulgaria said that our language is Bulgarian, and they changed our name a few years ago, and we are here because we don't like this. We are Macedonians, we speak Macedonian.
The identity of a nation these people refuse to compromise on. Gillian Wolfe, Al Jazeera.
Wrapping up today's edition of News Around Africa and the World here on Star Television, Channel 21. It's in the U.S. with a report that says President Joe Biden is in the Middle East. But how do Palestinians see his visit? Reporter Awa Ibrahim reflects on the legacy of Al Jazeera's Shireen Abu Akleh and how it puts a spotlight on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. This report tells us more.
We've seen Palestinians come together, we've seen them speak up about what they're experiencing. So while it's been very sad, it's also been a moment of togetherness and strength.
I'm Marwa Ibrahim, a senior journalist with Al Jazeera English. And between us, it's still very difficult to come to terms with the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh.
I remember my first reaction was, I just screamed. I was instantly put into this shock and sadness. It's been a huge loss for us all. I myself didn't grow up in the Arab world. I grew up in an Arab household. And her face and her voice were always on our TV screen. And then when I grew up and became a journalist myself and then joined the same network that she worked in and eventually met her in Palestine as I was reporting there, it was a huge honor. I think what's most memorable about her for me is her very calm and collected voice, which was consistent regardless of how horrific the event around her may have been. It wasn't just about the journalism. She deeply cared for the people and the place and the cause that she reported on, and I think we all recognize that. She was definitely an icon, and it's really still difficult to come to terms with her loss. She was a Palestinian Christian, but that was something that never was important. She cared about Palestinian unity and the Palestinian cause. As I was sitting at the cemetery where she was buried, a Muslim man who'd come all the way from Nazareth in the north, he said, "I'm here to pay my respects and to read the Fatiha, which is the opening chapter of the Muslim holy book." And I think that was very reflective of how it didn't matter what faith she belonged to. Since Shireen Abu Akleh's death, it's been a reflection of how difficult it is for Palestinians to live their daily lives. Since May 2021, there were protests about residents who were being removed and evacuated from their own homes in East Jerusalem and Sheikh Jarrah. There was the 11-day assault on Gaza. There were protests about restrictions on Palestinians going to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan. We've seen increasing numbers of Palestinians being killed. They're killed just at checkpoints. Palestinian journalists are killed while they're reporting. Shireen Abu Akleh was a very famous, known journalist, and yet she was killed. According to a lot of the investigations that were launched by human rights organizations and media organizations, she was targeted. It wasn't a random bullet that killed her, she was targeted and killed.
We find that the shots that killed Abu Akleh came from Israeli security forces and not from indiscriminate firing by armed Palestinians.
There's huge hope and commitment to making sure that this does become a turning point, to try and make sure that what happened is not repeated. Whether that will happen or not is for us to wait and see. But that intention is there, and that hope is definitely there.
These are all the stories making news around Africa and the world for today. Many thanks for watching, and continue to stay with us for the best in television viewing. See you back here tomorrow. I'm Janet Mugbe-Zaiza. Have a wonderful night. This is News on Africa and the world.
Hello and happy welcome to Start the News with news on Africa and the world.